Recently, you might have noticed something different in the fight against COVID.
A growing number of Republicans are encouraging Americans to get vaccinated.
Some Republicans appear to be changing their tune on COVID vaccinations,
shifting their message.
And there has been a notable shift in the Republican Party.
Yep, whether it's concern over the midterms, panic about the stock market, or a genuine change of heart, all of a sudden, a whole bunch of Republican leaders are speaking out more in support of vaccination efforts than ever before.
It absolutely makes sense for many Americans to get vaccinated.
These vaccines are saving lives.
These shots need to get in everybody's arm as rapidly as possible.
But when the bar was so low to begin with, how much does that really mean? And should they really get credit for it? For starters, let's be clear about the core fact. During the most pivotal period for the US vaccination campaign, this spring, Republican leaders chose to play footsie with anti-vaxxers for months. And the real bosses, conservative media figures, actively made things worse.
Maybe it doesn't work and they're simply not telling you that.
They don't get their life back if they get a vaccine.
I'm actually beginning to have doubts.
Oh, and that vaccine bashing? It came at the same time that Fox was secretly launching its own internal vaccine passport. And it had a clear effect. A recent study found that while almost 90% of Democrats are vaccinated, Republicans are at around 50%. And half of those unvaccinated Republicans say they'll never get the shot. So, are conservative leaders actually reversing course? Kind of, but not really. Take the Congressional Republican Doctors Caucus, for example. Their press conference, which, by the way, included a member who's recently spoken to white supremacist conferences, was supposedly intended to promote vaccinations. But instead, they mentioned the lab leak theory way more.
This might not be the last virus that comes out of China.
The growing list of evidence that leads us directly to the Chinese Communist Party and their cover-up.
SARS-CoV-2 emanated from a laboratory leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
And possibly in part of Chinese bioweapons research.
And when they did talk shots, they included more disclaimers than a 3 a.m. infomercial.
And this is a personal decision because there can be some side effects.
You and your doctor should decide the pros and cons, the risk and benefits, and then come to a decision that's right for them about the vaccine.
But it makes sense that these actual medical doctors are hesitant to publicly acknowledge what the science and medicine unambiguously say, that the vaccines are safe and necessary. Because conservative media remains firmly in the camp of vaccine hesitancy.
When it comes to medical privacy, they've become like the Taliban.
This apartheid-style open-air hostage situation.
Natural immunity may be better than vaccinated immunity.
I never told anyone to get a vaccine.
If you feel as though this is not something for you, don't do it.
And some of the party's biggest stars, like Ron DeSantis, a leading early 2024 candidate, continue to contradict their own pro-vaccine statements with their actions. There are, of course, some Republicans who are slightly braver with their words, like Alabama Governor Kay Ivey.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks. It's the unvaccinated folks that are letting us down.
Ivey's outburst was notable for how straightforward it was, but also because it was such a shift from her posture for the past few months. Up until now, Ivey has done little to actually promote vaccinations in her state, and signed a law banning restaurants and businesses from requiring them. Contrast that with her very public interest in blocking trans kids from playing sports, something she actually spent money on to tell her largely unvaccinated constituents about.
Here in Alabama, boys play with boys sports and girls play girls sports.
All this as her state has the lowest full vaccination rate in the country, and, naturally, one of the highest new infection rates. And that, at the end of the day, is as big of a contributor to Republican vaccine hesitancy as those actually spreading the misinformation. Republican leaders who know better and either fed the insanity or turned a blind eye before it was too late. Where have we heard that before?